It all started when my wife returned home from a business trip early and snuck into the house hoping to surprise me. But the surprise was on her. As she tiptoed to the bedroom and looked through the partially open door, she saw me standing in the middle of the room looking at myself in the full-length mirror. I was wearing my brand new white long-line bra with silicone-filled breast forms, a white long-legged girdle with black seam stocking attached to the garter tabs on the girdle legs, and a pair of black spike-heeled pumps on. She stepped back, grabbed her iPhone, and went back to the door and started taking videos and pictures of me examining myself in the mirror. After a few minutes of pictures and video, she walked into the room and said, well, what have we here?" I was stunned, embarrassed, and speechless. Amy walked around me looking at me, then said, "So this is what you like to do when I'm gone, huh?" I tried to mumble something about just wanting to see what it was like, but she stopped me. She then said, "You like girdles? Well, girdles it'll be." I just stood then until she whipped out her phone and started taking pictures and said, "How would your drinking buddies and co-workers like to see you like this?" I didn't answer her at first. She then said, "Now you are going to stay that way the rest of the day." She walked out of the bedroom and told me to follow her. As I walked after her, or should I say stumbled, thanks the shoes. The nylons caressed my legs, the girdle's tightness squeezing me, the satin panel rubbing my groin, the long line bra squeezing my ribcage, and the breast forms jiggling. It was a strange but erotic feeling. Once we were in the living room, she sat down and then told me to have a seat. After I was seated, she said to me, "So you like girdles, huh?" I again tried to explain how I just wanted to try one on to see what it was like. She didn't seem to buy my explanation but moved on to the next question. "How long have you been dressing?" I tried to be honest and told her since I was a teenager, then said, "But not all the time, just once in a while." Amy then went back to the bedroom, grabbed the box with my secret stash I had on the floor, brought it back, and looked in it. She looked at me and said, "Only one girdle? And some stockings, pantyhose, and a bra? What, no dresses or skirts? We'll have to fix that." She then told me to stand up and put my hands behind my back. I looked at her and she repeated the order and then pulled out her phone and said, "Well, I guess I'll have to send these pictures." I jumped up and did as I was told, and just as quickly she snapped a pair of handcuffs on my wrists. She then pulled me over to a dining room chair, sat me down, and tied me to the chair. After I was tied to the chair, my wife grabbed my things, walked over to our bedroom, and disappeared for about 10 or 15 minutes. When she returned, she was carrying a black plastic bag. She walked past me, said, "I'll be back in a little while," and left the house, leaving me sitting in the chair in the girdle, long line bra, stockings, and high heels right in front of the dining room window. It seemed like forever when my wife finally returned, but it was only about 20 minutes. She untied me and told me to get dressed. I took off the heels and walked to our room, opened my underwear and sock drawer to find it empty. I called Amy and asked her where my underwear and socks were, only to have her tell me, "You're not going to need that stuff anymore. Besides, you already wearing your underwear and stockings, so you won't need your old underwear anymore. Now get dressed." I went to remove the long line bra and breast forms, but I was stopped by Amy, who said, "Leave that alone, you're to keep that on also." I started to argue with her, but she held up her phone and said, "Or should I just send these pictures out?" I reluctantly did as she said and pulled my jeans up and had to pull my belt tighter to get them to stay up. She then tossed me a polo shirt that I pulled on over my head. Looking down, I saw the two mounds that were my breast forms, and look at Amy, who just laughed, tossed me my running shoes and my windbreaker and said, "Let's go." I was walked out the house following Amy, feeling very self-conscious of breast forms poking out the front of my shirt, the tightness of the girdle, the silkiness of the stockings, and the pull on the garters of the stockings. Amy insisted on driving, so I ended up sitting in the passenger seat watching the scenery while she drove on. After a while, we came to a strip mall where my wife pulled in and parked in front of a store named Sarah Jane's Foundations. Amy parked the car and told me to get out and follow her. We walked into the store where we were met by a saleswoman who introduced herself as Clara and asked, "Is he the one you called about?" Amy answered right away saying, "Yes, he is." And then said, "Girdle boy here needs some more foundation wear since he likes it so much." Clara just looked at me for a minute before saying okay, anything special? Amy said yeah, anything tight and restrictive. The woman said okay, then we'll need some measurements, so let's go into the changing room. She took me by the hand and pulled me to changing room and ordered me to remove my shirt and pants. At first I didn't move until Amy yanked off my jacket, revealing the bumps I was hiding under my jacket. Then she pulled my shirt over my head and then yanked my pants down, leaving me standing there exposed in the long line bra, long-legged girdle and stockings. The clerk just looked, smiled and said okay, let's get started. She measured my waist, my butt, my chest, then asked, you want a B cup like he has now or larger? Amy said that will be fine as he'll only wear those on weekends and after work. After the clerk had the measurement, she asked Amy, would you like him to have 1 or 2 body briefers also? Amy smiled and asked, do they make them in his size also? The clerk measured me again from my breast forms to my crotch and said we can special order some from the manufacturer. So Amy said sure, why not? Over the next half hour, Clara brought several girdles for Amy and me to look at. First she showed us a panty girdle, but Amy rejected it, saying he can't wear stockings with that style, but Clara said he can wear pantyhose with it. Amy said we'll see. Then Clara showed us another panty girdle, but this one had a high waist with satiny panels in front and back. Amy took it from Clara, looked at it, read the label Raga Firm Control Chapat high-waisted, and then compared it to the first one and said yes, maybe this style can do if he wears pantyhose, give us 2 of these. Clara asked what colors. And Amy asks, well, what colors do they come in? And Clara replied white like the one you're holding or black, but we also have one that been dyed pink in his size. Amy said well, pink of course and white. Clara disappeared and returned with 2 girdles, one in white and the other in pink, and laid them out on the table. Clara again left, went into the storeroom and then returned with a long-legged girdle in black with a high waist, saying I'm assuming that you want high waists and extra firm control in everything? And Amy said of course. Only the best for my girdle boy. She then held up the girdle and explained that this model was a Rago high-waisted half-leg extra firmer girdle with rigid nylon satin front and sides that hold the tummy and thighs firmly. It also has 4 removable concealed garters to hold up stockings. She then pointed out that it has a zipper and hook and eyelets on the side, making it easier to get on and better shaping because of it. She then said it came in white and black, to which Amy replied okay, he'll take 1 in each color. Next Clara returned and said I just found this model in the Rago line, it's a high-waisted brief girdle. She said it has detachable garters, showing the 4 garter hanging down from the leg openings. She then went on to explain that it had wide covered elastic at the waist and leg openings for that custom fit, invisible tummy tamer panel, boning sewn in for ultimate shaping, full rear coverage, and had a side zipper with hook and eye closure. Amy smiled, said great, 2 of those. Clara then told Amy that all Rago girdles could be dyed and she had a color palette if we were interested. Amy said of course and looked at it and said, you know what? Order another of each girdle in this pink color. The whole time I'm standing there in just the girdle, long line bra and stocking, totally embarrassed and being totally ignored. Clara next came back into the room with another girdle and showed it to Amy, saying I don't know if you're interested in these or not because they are for skirts or dresses, but I figured I'd at least show this one too. It's Rago's open bottom high-waisted firm control girdle that features boning and 6 garters. Amy said of course he'll be wearing skirts and dresses on the weekends from now on, so give him at least 2 if those also. Clara next returned with several long line bras in white, black, beige and of course one in pink, all added to the collection of garments already piled on the bench in the room. Clara left the room again and returned about 5 minutes later with something in her hand and tells Amy, you know I have this, it was custom ordered in a lavender color and never picked it up. I'm sure it'll fit him and I can give it to you at a good price since a deposit was paid on it and they never picked it up. She then explained to Amy that it was an extra firm lasette body briefer with garters. It's a super sexy shaper that features circular bands to control waist, hips and back with a hook. and I crouched for height adjustment, and as a B cup Amy turned, looked at me and said, "Okay, we'll take it. In fact, he'll wear it now." She then handed it to me and told me to put it on. Clara left the room while Amy stood staring at me. I looked at her with pleading eyes. She just held up her phone showing me the pictures of me and said, "Well?" I took the long line bra, girdle, and stockings off. Amy then handed me the body briefer. I stepped into it, pulled it up my body, and put the shoulder straps over my shoulders. Amy looked at me and pointed to the stockings and breast forms. I put the breast forms into the bra cups, then sat down and pulled the seam stockings up my legs and adjusted them so the seams were straight. The whole time Amy was videoing me. Clara was called back in and Amy asked her, "What do you think?" Clara walked around me, then ran her hands over me / the briefer and said, "It's great. It fits him like a glove. I like the fit in the rear, touching my butt, and in the waist, giving him a nice feminine waist. It was one size smaller than what I had measured, but I knew that would make it fit better." She then snapped a garter strap and laughed. Amy then handed me my clothes and shoes and said, "Get dressed." After I was dressed, we walked to the register where Clara rang up all the girdles. I couldn't believe the price. It was several $100s. Clara then handed me a box and said, "Compliments of me for this large purchase." On opening the box, I found several pairs of expensive stockings in several colors. Amy told me to thank Clara, which I did with utter embarrassment. I grabbed the bags and walked out of the store, with a new feeling of tightness all over my body and the feel of stockings tugging at the garters and caressing my legs. Reaching the car, even sitting down, was a new experience. After a short drive, my wife pulls into women's dress shop and parked. I am made to walk into the store with my wife, who takes me to the skirt department, where she starts looking the clearance rack at dresses and skirts and holding them up to me, and all I can do is stand there and be embarrassing. She finally picks 2 above-the-knee dresses, one black with a pink hourglass shape on the front and back, and a black and blue dress with the same shape. She then picks 2 skirts, both appear to be below the knee, one in black and the other in pink. We walk up to the register where my wife has me pay for the clothing. The whole time I see the young clerk looking at the 2 bumps on my chest that can be seen under my jacket. I look down and away and pay for the purchases. As I walk away, my wife says to the girl, "Yes, they are for him," and laughs. Alls I can do is walk to the car, totally embarrassed. Once at home, I'm told to take off my pants and shirt and try on my new purchases. First, I put on the black skirt. Upon pulling it up, I think it's not going to fit, but because of the body briefer, it zips up and fits tightly around the waist. I walk out to the front room, noticing that it seems to be a bit tight around the knees. Amy is waiting for me in the living room, where she has me walk across the room, spin, then walk back towards her. She then has me turn around in front of her, and she runs her hands over the skirt, rubbing my butt and hips and thighs in the tight skirt. She then says, "Almost perfect." She then picks up some safety pins and pins the slit in the back of the skirt closed and sends me back to our room to try on the other skirt and 2 dresses. Walking back to the room, I find that because of the slit being pinned closed, I have to take smaller steps because of the tightness of the skirt. The same is done with the other skirt. Then I try the dresses on, first the black and bright blue one, then the black and pink one. After modeling the dresses, I'm told to stay in the black and pink one, and am handed the high heels I was wearing when my wife first came home and told to put them on. The rest of the day I spend in the body briefer, stocking, heels, and dress. Amy has me make dinner, tidy up the house, and finally, when it's time for bed, I'm allowed to take everything off. It's such a relief. I put my pajamas on and climb into bed. The next morning, I'm awoken by Amy with the greeting, "Good morning, girdle boy, time to get up and girdled." As I get into the shower, Amy hands me a lady chic razor and says, "Shave everywhere, legs, chest, and armpits." I do as I'm told, just hoping this nightmare will be over, but that's not to be, as Amy is standing waiting to inspect me to make sure I've done as she has told me, and after a check she says, "Good, now put this on." I'm handed some pink slippery panties, a black open bottom girdle, black stockings, and the black skirt, which I see now has the slit in the back sewn closed. First, I put on the panties that have a really slippery and silky feeling to them, then I struggle into the girdle, pulling it up my legs and over the panties and over my waist. I pull the zipper up, tightening it around my waist and hips, sit down with some difficulty and roll the stocking up my legs before standing up to attach them to the garters on the girdle. As I struggle with this task, I see Amy videoing the whole thing with her phone. She just smiles and says, "More pictures for your gallery." After getting the girdle and stocking on, I have to step into the skirt, pull it up to my waist, and pull the zipper closed. The skirt is almost as tight as the girdle, and after putting a polo shirt and heels on, I'm told to go make breakfast. Walking is difficult between the open bottom girdle and the below the knee length pencil skirt, but taking smaller steps I'm able to do it as Amy follows behind me, laughing and telling me to swing my hips. I spend the rest of the day doing things for Amy and learning to walk in a tight skirt, taking smaller steps and pulling the skirt above my knee to go up and down stairs. Going to the bathroom was even a challenge, as I had to take the skirt off, roll the girdle down, then pull my panties down just to go to the bathroom. Later that day, Amy makes me sit with her outside on out deck after dinner. I find the girdle and skirt restrictive, but I have no choice and am not released from my girdle bondage until bedtime, when I am finally able to shed the heels, skirt, stockings, and girdle. The next morning I get up, shower, and when I open my underwear drawer to get dressed for work, I find nothing but girdles and stockings. Amy walks into the room, smiles, reaches into the drawer, and pulls out one of the Rago high-waisted half-legged girdles, some suntan stocking, and hands them to me. I have no other option but to put on the girdle and stocking. As I look at the girdle, I notice that Amy has sewn the open crotch closed, meaning going to the bathroom isn't going to be easy. I pull the girdle on, zip up the side zipper and close the eye and hook closures, then sit on the bed and roll the stocking up my legs and attach them to the hidden garters. I'm then allowed to put my suit and shoes on, minus my socks, of course. Amy sees my pants are loose and tells me that she'll have to have all my pants altered. It's been a year now and I haven't been out of a girdle or stockings since, and Amy has found a tailor that has altered all my clothes to fit my girdle body snugly. Weekends I now have to wear open bottom girdles and the pencil skirts, all with the slits sewn closed to limit my step when I walk. I'm also required to wear long line bras or body briefers with the breast forms.